Hello everyone, this is Magbo Gaming here, and I have a question for you guys. Do you think it's worth it today to collect retro games, like certain retro games or most of it? Because a lot of people feels that a lot of retro games these days are way too overpriced, out of the reach. They would rather emulate and stuff, and I don't blame them because, like, first of all, the company no longer sells these type of games that are worth that much money. Like, for example, let's just say that there's some JRPGs on the PS1 that are way too overpriced these days, and the company no longer sells it, they're out of business or anything like that. So you just emulate it. You want to preserve history. You want to make sure that new generations can get to somehow experience it, right? That's why the Internet Archive and Gaming Archive exists, because a lot of these games, these retro games, are not even available to the public anymore. They're not widely available for you to, like, easily be able to go to a storefront, whether it be a physical store or a digital store, and be able to buy these games for yourself for a reasonable price, of course. No, a lot of these retro games, some of the rarest ones, they're very low in stock, they're in very high demand, and that drives the price to go really high. So I'm glad, in my experience, I got to actually collect a lot of these retro games that I own right now. Behind me, as you can see, if you can look around the background, you can see that I do own a lot of retro games, but I do own a lot of modern games like Switch and PS4. What I like about retro games is that you just buy the game, you put it in your console, and you play it immediately. If it's like before the 7th generation, that's especially true. Like, you don't need anything online related in order to make the game function. You play the game once, you enjoy, you have nothing else to worry about. None of those microtransactions or those DLCs and all that stuff that will make the game a lot worthless when the storefront goes down completely, pretty much. So those are some of the advantages of retro games, and you can easily emulate most of the retro games as well, and they'll run in most modern devices these days, especially a PS Vita or a Steam Deck or anything like that. So yeah, is it worth buying retro games today? That all depends on what you want to collect. There is a lot of retro games out there today that are still pretty reasonable price, like the Super Mario Worlds and the Final Fantasy X on PS2, the Kingdom Hearts. They're all very reasonable price, and they're all great games. Amazing game. And I would say, since they got remade and remastered and re-released on different consoles later on, the demand for that specific edition of the game is not really that much there, because they have a better way to play it. But if there is no such thing that has ever been released outside the original console, then that's when people are gonna want to go back there and play those games. So I'm gonna show you a few examples of some of the games that I own that are retro for the most part. One of them is not really retro, but it was at a really good deal. So I just want to share that with you shortly. So like I said, it all depends on what retro games you want to collect. If you want to collect most of the first party Nintendo games that are like many years old and they printed a lot of copies, you should be able to find it for pretty affordable prices still. The majority of them. There are some exceptions like Earthbound on the Super Nintendo, but then again, it got re-released quite a few times on the Super Nintendo Mini Classic and also the Nintendo Switch Online membership. But you don't really own it there, do you? Like the first thing I told you about. But for some reason, that's still expensive. So here are some of the games I wanted to show you that are retro games for the most part. And then one modern one I'm just gonna also show off as well. Let me just be clear with you. Some people define retro games as being more than 20 years old or over. So it's 2024 right now as of the recording of this video. 20 years ago, what were on the market? There were Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Game Boy Advance. The DS just came out like in the end of that year. But exactly 20 years ago, the DS was not out yet. It was a few weeks away from that, because it's October 2024 as the recording of this video. So if that's the logic, if that's true, anything from 6th gen and before that are retro right now. But some can argue that Wii, Xbox 360, and PS3 are also retro at this point. One of the reasons being that most of the storefronts today, besides the PS3, are down and they're no longer available for people to buy or purchase stuff online. They're no longer being made. It's over 2 generations old at this point. And it's true. We got the Switch right now. What was the Wii 2 generations ago, right? So what about the Xbox Series X? 2 generations ago, which one was it? Xbox 360. And the PS5, 2 generations ago, it was PS3. So some people define like that. Everyone can define retro as their own thing. I know one thing for a fact, PS4 is not retro yet. That's for sure, no matter what you say. And Switch is definitely not retro either. But you get the idea. Here are the games. Sorry, I dragged this a little bit. So, F-Zero GX is worth like $70 to $80 these days on eBay. But I got this for free because my older sister gave it to me as a present back in 2006. And I still have this little Blockbuster sticker right here, which means that this game in particular was rented in a Blockbuster at some point, which was pretty interesting, I must say. Yes, it's complete in box as well, and this is one of the hardest GameCube games of all time as well. And yeah, it still has this thing right here. So I got this for $0. I got this for free. And it's worth $70 to $80 these days, but I am gonna keep it because one, my sister gave it to me, so I'm gonna honor it. And second of all, it's an F-Zero game. I collect a lot of Nintendo first party games for the most part. There are certain I don't because like I'm not that attached to it, but most of them are. Next game. Do you consider this a retro game at this point? Some people will say yes, some people will say no. I got this for $15 at Walmart when it was on clearance back in 2016. If you were able to pick up a copy when nobody cared about it, and then you decide to sell it now, ooh, you're up for a big profit. I'm still not gonna sell this. I do want to get the DS version of Rhythm Heaven at some point as well, but that's also kind of hard to get too. But at least I got the most expensive one here. Yes, it's completed in box as well. So from $15, how much is it worth today? It's worth 120 plus. People are starting to realize how valuable of a series Rhythm Heaven is, and it didn't sell much at all. And now the demand has grown even more for this game than back in 2016 when they were just trying to get rid of it. Nobody cared about it at the time. They thought that this game was worthless. But you may think something's worthless one day, but years later, you're gonna be surprised like how much value this thing gets. You just don't know. But you gotta check the history of this whole thing. Like how much has it been reproduced? This is a late release. So there hasn't been much copies coming out of this. Of course, Walmart had it, so it must be a decent amount of copies. But I don't think this thing sold more than 1 million units. I think it sold way less than that, if I'm not mistaken. I'll put it there to confirm. So you get the idea. XD Gale of Darkness. Currently playing this still. And I got this from Game On Mayagüez back in 2018 or something like that. For this price, $24.99. I would have never thought that this game would jump up to like over $200 these days. Less than 5 to 6 years after I got this game. As a matter of fact, 2 years after I got this game, the pandemic hit and this thing was already skyrocketing. It was over 150 at that point. So why was it worth 25 bucks back in 2018 and now over $200 now? I'm just gonna make a few guesses. There's a lot more demand for these type of games nowadays. Especially anything that's from DS and below. Pokemon games is just like more new generations are wanting to experience the older games. So the demand is gonna increase as each generation passes by. Maybe the alpha generation, once their parents tell them about how much they enjoyed this game, and they like the Pokemon of today, they're going to want to go back to this most likely. And if Nintendo, which at this point of time they haven't released a GameCube Nintendo Switch Online membership thing, this is the only way you're gonna play XD Gale of Darkness unless you emulate it with Dolphin on the computer, of course, or Steam Deck. The demand, the lack of options of you finding this game online and being able to play them is not widely available at all anymore. You could barely even find it anywhere anymore. All this factors in for a higher cost. Even back then in 2018, it was not being printed for over 15 years. You can't find it anywhere, but the demand was not there. People were still more focused on the newer Pokemon games. So it comes to surprise, like depending on life events that happens, the market of the games will change in some way, shape, or form. Now, next game I got is Solo to Robo. I got this back in 2011 from an old friend of mine's back in the day for only $20. I got this for $20 back in 2011. And thankfully, I never sold it since. I'm glad that I never decided to sell this thing. I always wanted to finish this game. I never got to finish this game, but I find this game super unique. You can see the gameplay here, in case you don't know. Unlike the other ones I didn't show, because this one in particular, in case you're curious to know what this game's all about, it's basically like a furry, a dog-like human or whatever, inside a robot, and you carry stuff, you attack with it, stuff like that. It's pretty unique. It's from the Secret of Tales Concerto, which is also extremely expensive right now too. So this game nowadays is worth over $400. $300-$400 for a completed box. Or even more than that. And I got this for $20 back then, so got really lucky with this one, honestly. I was curious about this game, but someone said he wanted to sell it to me, and I was like curious of this game. I'm like, well, sure, right now. I paid $20 for it back in 2011, and here it is with me right now. Next game, like I said, you could consider if it's retro or not. Same with this. This is not even 15 years old, but it's gonna be in a couple years. Soccer Wars So Long My Love. I got this from GameStop for $20 back then. Yep, I got this for $20 back in 2011 as well. And there were plentiful in many GameStop. You could still be able to find this game a couple years after it came out as well. I think this came out in 2010, so it wasn't that long ago since it came out at the time. Nowadays, this is going for over $80 to $90 on eBay. And I'm glad that I still have this game. I remember I played through the entire game. It's not only a tactical RPG, but it's also a dating simulator game, and you can end up with one of these girls as well. So you get the idea. And yep, it's complete in box. The disc is actually almost mint condition. I do try my best to take care of these games very well. And this is one of the lucky finds I got from back in the day. Now, this is not a retro game, but I just want to let you know right now that these modern games, you got to keep an eye on it, because a lot of these modern games are going to go up in price quickly, because they are out of print for so quickly now that, you know, if you didn't get it the time that it was out, you're probably going to be out of luck. But for this case, there was a second chance. Blue Reflection. I got this for only $20 in Game On Magic West back in 2019, I believe. And I think I really enjoyed this game. I played it like later on that same year. And this game was out of print for a while at that point. And then going to the pandemic and all that stuff, I remember this game boosted up to over $200 at the time. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm glad that I got this back. The only time I found this game in Puerto Rico was in that Game On Magic West. And I picked it up. Because I said to myself, well, I'm curious about this game. I like the box art. It looks like a magical girl JRPG, so I really want to check it out. And long and behold, I did enjoy this game. There was some repetitive stuff in the game. I prefer Second Light a lot better. But this game is pretty good as well. So I would say this game is yet to be on Switch. Only the second game's on Switch. This game was over $200 for a while. Like crazy. But I like this game so much I didn't sold it. So you get the idea why I'm saying that I'm a collector first and a reseller second, right? For those people that don't believe me. Because if I was a reseller first, this game wouldn't have been with me right now. I would, when I sold it for $200, I would have resold it for $200 and be good with it. But there was a restock of this game. I think it was sometime last year, late last year, because the whole Blue Reflection craze in 2022, 2023, I think, it got a little bit more popular. I was even in the Blue Reflection Discord server as well, which I met a couple of friends of mine that now watches Anime Night with me on a weekly basis. Thanks to this game, by the way. It's pretty much a game that's near and dear to my heart, honestly, at this point. Because I met some good friends online on Discord with this game. In conclusion of this whole thing, a lot of retro games are expensive, but there's still a lot more retro games out there that are still pretty cheap. So if you want to start a collection today for retros, or a game collection in general with PS4 and Switch games or PS5, whatever you want to collect for, then you could still find a lot of good deals out there, but you're just gonna have to look for it around, like everywhere. Meaning that you don't just go to Walmart to get games. You don't just go to a game store locally to get games. You go to pawn shops, you go to flea markets, you go to Facebook Marketplace, you could probably go to Mercari, eBay, Amazon. There's many ways you could get games. Through word of mouth, through close friends that they could give you a deal. There's so much ways you could probably get a good deal on games out there. And you could budget this pretty well so you can get decent games that you'll have a lot of fun with. Sure, if there's some expensive games you really want, my advice to you is start gathering up trade-ins of several games that you may not like or you may want to sell later after you play it. You gather up a pile of it, you trade them in, you get store credit, and then you could discount greatly the game you really want to get. That's what I'm going to start doing. If there's like an expensive game I really want, that's how I do it. That's how I got Atelier Annie. Instead of for $120 to $130, I got it for like less than $60 or $50 or so. Thanks for all the trade-ins I did. So you get the idea. That's all I have to say. Sorry the video dragged on for a bit long, but I hope you enjoy this little video of retro gaming. If you want to collect for retro games, it's still a good time to do it. Just know what you're looking for, know how to budget. Don't be like spending money like crazy that you're not gonna have a gaming budget afterwards. No, be smart with your money so you could enjoy as much games as possible for the minimum amount of cost as possible. Until next time, guys, Magbo says, good luck with the hunt. I hope you find the games that you're looking for, and I'll see you all in the next time. Magbo Gaming out. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching this video. Check these videos too that are related to what you just watched. I'm sure you will find some enjoyment there. You can also follow me on Instagram and support the channel via Patreon or buy my Magbo merch. Links below. Hope to see you again soon.